Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hello everyone, welcome back to Turn the Page. This is an extremely special and exciting episode for us. We are so excited to be here. I am Jen, one of your hosts. I am joined by my co-host,
Jessica. Hi, also excited to be here.
And yes, we are so psyched for this conversation with the brilliant creator of beautiful graphic novels, books, animation, so many beautiful things. And we are here on the 15th anniversary of HILDA to talk about some new books. So welcome to the show. Could I ask you to introduce yourself and your book, please?
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Luke Pearson. I'm the creator of the HILDA series of comics, the latest of which is called HILDA and Twig, Wake the Iceman.
It's so lovely. And we are here, as I said, on the 15th anniversary of HILDAFOK, now HILDA and the Troll. What was the inception point for HILDA and her world? And where did your interest in Scandinavian folklore come from?
The interest has kind of always been there since I was little, really. I think like trolls always kind of captured my imagination. And my granddad is very big on kind of Norse history, so that kind of stuff was always kind of there for me. And yeah, around the time I started writing Hilda, there was a few things kind of in the air in my life where I think recently been on a trip to Norway, which like really sparked my imagination. I did a project at university about Icelandic folklore and kind of immersed myself in that for like, a brief period of time, kind of really got into it, and kind of that was around the time I was kind of starting to think a bit more seriously about longer comics. And yeah, like I had the opportunity to kind of do my first kind of lengthier piece. I mean, it wasn't a lengthy piece, it was a short comic really. But I had these things in mind. I'd been kind of rediscovered the Moomins, which was another kind of like formative thing in my childhood. And yeah, these things all kind of came together around and kind of centered around this character who I'd been drawing in my sketchbook quite a bit, but hadn't quite figured out what I wanted to do with her. And yeah, they all kind of came together to make what ended up being HILDAFOK and is now known as HILDA and the Troll.
Again, the more I see of Hilda, I'm delighted by her. I remember the first time a Hilda comic showed up at the library, I was thrilled. Her adventures have this timeless quality, and they call to mind some of my favorite literary heroes, such as like Pippi Longstocking. My question is, how do you know when it's time to return to her story? Do you get an image in your mind for her next adventure? Do you hear like a bit of dialogue?
I think it's varied each time. For these ones, I think like I can remember like the first one in this new series, Hilda and Twig Hide from the Rain. It was specifically like a visual of them hiding from the rain inside specifically a burial mound, and that was kind of like the inciting image in my brain, and everything kind of stemmed from that. Like, why are they hiding from the rain? What's inside the burial mound? What could this story be? I just knew there was like something there. I think like a lot of the time it has come from, there'll be like an image and a feel, and then I've kind of found the way into the story like that, and figured out what do I want to tell.
I'd love to know in general how your time in animation and storyboarding shaped or maybe inflected your approach to comics, or vice versa. Do you feel like your experience in both areas has given you special advantages?
Yeah, I think they kind of played off each other really. I'd already been doing comics when I started doing storyboarding. At that point, I was purely drawing off my comics skills and knowledge, figuring out how to adapt that for animation. And then like coming out of, I only did storyboarding briefly in relative terms to the rest of my career. But that was quite kind of like an intensive experience. And it did kind of, I think going forward, kind of affected my like the language, the visual language I use in terms of comics, in being quite interested in specific motions happening panel to panel, and a lot of kind of physical cartoony stuff going on. I still enjoy kind of playing with that. finding ways to kind of toss Hilda and Twig around and getting bumping and bouncing off things. That's yeah, just always enjoy doing that.
That does make sense to me because yeah, it is they are very dynamic comics and
Yes.
Hilda is always in motion and you do sort of capture that sense of of energy for sure.
Yeah, no, definitely. And one thing I love about Hilda, both in the books and the animated series, is she's very relatable. And in this particular adventure, we really see her frustration come out, how that can often overgrow her mood and affect her friends. Could you talk about this aspect of her personality and, why why you feel it's important that we allow characters to be real, even in a magical world of giants?
Yeah, well, I think she's always kind of had this a bit of a spikiness to her. And I've always, always thought of her as quite a rounded, kind of realistic character, despite obviously the situation she's in. Like I can remember like once, like a long time ago, someone pointing out in one of my books, like asking me like, well, why does she never smile? And I kind of thought she does smile. She's quite a happy. I think she's a really happy character actually. But then I was kind of like flicking through the book, and it's like, yeah, actually, she's not that smiley. She looks quite kind of intense and kind of cross, and quite serious a lot of the time. And I mean, part of her personality is that she's not kind of, she's looking for problems. She's looking for things to fix. She is serious. She's out to do things. So that's one part of it. She's trying to sort things out. But also, I think sometimes, at certain times, writing the stories, I've kind of write her as if she's an adult. Like her dialogue can be quite adult-like, and I'll kind of not forget that she's a kid, but I will occasionally sort of make myself step back and remember, like, yeah, she's particularly in these new stories, she's meant to be younger than she is. In some of the other books. And perhaps also now that I have my own children, it's felt more, I don't know, more important and more like interesting to like think about what are the difficulties for a kid, like how, I don't know how like messy and kind of big these feelings can be. And yeah, like I just kind of want her to be free to kind of make her mistakes and not always get it right, and kind of that be that'd be one of the things she has to deal with and kind of sort out. And I think also for these new books that I've been doing, because Twig's kind of come to the forefront as a character, that's kind of given me an opportunity to kind of, yeah, I don't know, like dive even more into like Hilda as like a human character and all the kind of fallibility that comes with that.
That is a really lovely segue into my question about, writing for a younger audience. You've already talked a little bit about it, but what were the new opportunities and challenges? It sounds like you've talked about like your storytelling concerns and how that shifted with the audience. Did anything else change for you, or did you have new priorities in telling these stories?
Well, like I say, like one thing was Twig. He's a character who has always been there and always been popular with readers, but haven't historically given him all that much to do. So I really like the idea of giving him a voice and getting inside his head and kind of fleshing him out, and also like considering there are two conflicting experiences going on in all these stories. There's Hilda's point of view and there's Twig's point of view, and what are the different like fun ways they can kind of intersect and diverge, and what fun can I have with that? And then in terms of these new books, I've been wanting to just make them a little bit more accessible for slightly younger audiences, or kind of step back to what my original start point was, because Hilda as a kind of world quite quickly like grew away from that original starting point, and my interests kind of shifted, and then I found myself wanting to go back and explore that initial place a bit more. And lots of what I've been thinking about is how to talk to a younger audience without leaving behind the audience that I've kind of built up. So I really wanted to make some books that were a good read in one go, bedtime kind of book. Yeah.
I was really happy to see Twig's name as next to Hilda's as a main character. We absolutely adore Twig in my house. I'm very curious where the idea for a deer fox came from. When we first were introducing Hilda to our children, they wanted to know, oh, is this in any of the mythical bestiaries? And we were looking everywhere and we're looking this up. We're like, is this a Norse legend? And we only found, Twig and, the species in Hilda. So I'm really curious, where did the deer fox come from?
Yeah, I mean, it feels good that it feels like he could be a he could be a real thing. Um, yeah, I mean, it really just came from I knew I wanted her to have some little animal friend slash sidekick. And initially, it was the very first couple of drawings I did of her. It was a cat, like a witch's black cat. Um, I kind of knew I wanted it to be something a bit weirder. Um, so then I started just kind of mashing different animals together. And initially, it was I gave the cat a beak, so it was a kind of a bird cat, which didn't feel like anything. Didn't feel quite right for this this story. Yeah, I don't know. Like there was something once I kind of like deer antlers on a fox. They both felt like kind of quite like archetypal folkloric animals, and just felt just felt right. Uh, and that was it essentially.
Awesome.
Yeah, I love Twig so much. And that does, lead to my question about world building in general, and how, like, with these stories throughout all the forms and media, you do a great job of balancing, the grounded sort of like family and friend relationships, with the more fantastical inhabitants of the wilderness. Did you go into the project with a full sense of the world, or did you explore as you expanded through the books? How did that come about for you?
I very much grew as the series went along. Yeah, I really didn't. At the start, it was really just had the kind of location of the wilderness where she initially lives. Um, and I had trolls in mind, I had giants in mind, and I kind of knew I wanted to do something with elves, although they didn't show up till the second book. Um, although there's some, I think in Hilda and the Troll there are some elves like sort of peeking up behind rocks and things like. Oh, I like the idea of hiding them. But beyond that, like I really didn't. I wasn't necessarily expecting it to be a series, so it was really they were just my initial interests, and then kind of as each story came along, I just kind of dipped into what feels interesting right now, um, and where would be an interesting place to take the story, and that's how it's all grown, and kind of has done, kind of book to book. There's obviously over time, I've kind of thought ahead, and there's some kind of, I would kind of think of like bigger, broader ideas that could get to, or I could start to kind of feed into the stories. But for the most part, it's been most helpful for me to just think about it book by book, and just make each one the best it can be, and kind of treat it like this could be the last one, or it could be about to branch off into something else. Yeah.
That's really nice. And just kind of adding to that also, I wanted to ask about Berku. I I love that Hilda has a forest giant as a friend. How'd she make her debut based on the world building that you've already laid out?
I think for a long time I'd wanted to do something else with the forest giants, because they're a creature that appeared in the first comic. They appear in a way where Hilda is not particularly like phased by them, so it suggests she's familiar with these things, but it's never really touched upon again. I always felt quite fond of them because they're, I guess, similar to Twig and to the Waffs. They're not necessarily, I mean, they're giants, but they're not based on anything in particular. And it felt like something I wanted to, return to at some point. And this felt like a good moment to do it. And I realized we'd never seen a young forest giant. And I also wanted to sort of, think about what is Hilda's, like, has she had any interactions with other children like before she moved to Trollberg? And this felt like a nice way to do it.
Of course she'd have of course she'd have another her other interaction with children would be with a young forest giant. It makes absolute perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I really love, just the coziness of this particular story and the emotional dynamics between Berku and Hilda and Twig, where, everybody sort of has their emotions and you get to see how they affect other people in your circle and cause different reactions and things like that. It's really like subtle emotional storytelling for children, but also very accessible and relatable.
Thanks. Yeah, that's what I was hoping would be the case. And yeah, like I like the idea of like dropping you into this kind of established friendship, and yeah, just seeing it get kind of messy in a way that it can do when you're a kid. And just seeing Hilda's feelings kind of get away from her and not necessarily behave in the best way, like not react to things in the best way. And thinking about how can you come back from that, and what can you do from Twig's point of view when you're kind of you're trying to fix things for someone else who maybe isn't even seeing that there's a problem. And yeah, it just felt like a fun thing to kind of play out.
Yeah, Twig's little side adventure that was connected to the main adventure was super fun to just watch unfold. I mean, like he was really expressive, and I really felt what he was going through with each panel.
Oh, yeah, with his his transgressive horn tooting. Yeah. It's so great.
I do feel I kind of feel bad for Twig in these stories. I feel like I really put him through some stuff. He gets very stressed out.
Yeah, I really appreciated the emotional dynamics. And I don't know if this is like a thing about getting older and softer, but I think that like we spend a lot of time teaching children how to like avoid conflict, but maybe like less time on like repair and restoration, and I think like and as me as an adult, I know I could always learn more about that too. And so it seems like very also timely in that way.
100%. Yes.
Yeah, I mean I'm glad you took that from that. And yeah, it's I think it's like I was hoping there would be sort of something interesting, just seeing how Hilda and Twig are kind of both kind of like trying to solve something, the same problem in different ways, and you're not all going quite right. But then figuring out how to bring everything to a happy solution.
Oh, this was great. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you. We really appreciate
You're
it.
very welcome. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
So are there more Hilda and Twig adventures coming, or what's on your horizon right now?
There is, yeah. I'm currently just starting to draw a third Hilda and Twig, which will be called Hilda and Twig Find a Space Rock. Without spoiling anything, I can say that Twig will be put into more stressful situations.
Oh, no. All right. We look forward to it. Yeah.
All right. Well, this has been Jen and my co-host
Jessica
in conversation with
Luke Pearson.
Thank you so much for joining us. It is now time to close this chapter.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.